Those of you who have feline overlords resident in your households, I'm sure you know when there's a cat that's comfy, you never ever move the comfy cat. That's how the rules go. She was being absolutely adorable, and I didn't have the heart, but that kind of threw a lot of my timetable for today off. So, here I am, and I'm a little late, but not too bad. And apparently, my sound is working okay. So, let's get back to Black Wolf, which is, of course, for anybody who's been following, my fantasy novel, which is available at prismcat.com/blackwolf, absolutely and 100% free, several formats. The Wattpad version is the only one that has the up-to-date fight in Chapter 6. At the moment, I need to fix the others. It's a lot of work. I haven't gotten to it yet. You're welcome to go and find the actual novel. Or you can just keep listening until I read all the way through the end, because I'm going to be on here every day that I possibly can until I have read right through the end. And also these are going on YouTube as well, so that they are available past the video on demand window that Twitch has. I hope everybody's looking after yourselves and doing whatever you need in order to get through this mess that we're all facing. But rather than dwell on that, let's go somewhere else. Let's go back to the 90s and back into Haven and the stuff that Jess and company are going through. And yesterday, Shane had a fight with another Marin, a Marani mage. Water has mages and people associated with it too, not just earth and fire. Big shock. And Shane is currently not in the best condition after that fight. So, 49. Jess deftly avoided running into someone without dropping the tray he was carrying. Her apology he acknowledged with a quick smile as he stepped around her to deliver the plates on the tray. 1 hot chicken sandwich, 1 lasagna. Give me a call if you need anything else. The female elf and male human thanked him, and Jess spun away to another table. At the bar, waiting for drinks from Thomas, he was joined by Nick, who passed on his own order. Not bad for a Saturday, the witch laughed. Feel like coming over for a couple of hours after we get off. Jess hesitated. Shane will wake up when he wakes up, and whether you're sitting with him worrying or not isn't going to make a difference. Liam thinks the sleep is best for him. Well, okay. You got Dungeons and Dragons in mind? Mm-hmm. I think Eva has evil new ideas for us. She was reading the monster manual and chortling to herself. Sounds fun. It would be interesting to see what you'd come up with in a campaign. Hey, slow down. I haven't been playing that long. Wait till I'm sure I've got a grip on the rules, would you? No hurry. Thomas set the required drinks on the bar, left them to take the ones each needed while he went to deal with someone else. Back to work, Jess sighed, flashing Nick a smile. The kitchen closed at 11, so although Thomas would keep the bar open until 1, Jess and Nick and Sonia were free to leave at midnight. They stopped on the porch to decide what they were going to do, or what they were doing, sorry. Stop and grab munchies? Sonia suggested. Good idea, Nick said. I bet Liam made all the popcorn again. Don't know what we're gonna do with that boy. Love me? Liam said innocently from behind him. Behind them. He looked distinctly satisfied that he made all 3 jump and whip around. Grinning, he got up off the bench. Eveline bounced to her feet, tail waving and ears forward, laughing. Gotcha, Liam chortled. What are you doing? Sonia demanded. waiting to surprise you. It worked, too. Munchies would be a good idea, but no. I did not eat all the popcorn. Just most of it. Nick rolled his eyes. So let's move already. Time is passing that we could be using to get our hands on that bloody ice diamond talisman. They turned towards the all-night convenience store, some 2 blocks away. 4 discussing strategies, Eveline frisking around them, laughing to herself visibly. Jess paused, losing track of Liam's idea, checking the breeze for scents. Something was tickling the back of his mind with danger. He caught the scent clearly, finally, and something inside came awake, demanding that he do something about it. He stopped where he stood, and tried to identify which direction. He didn't know what that scent was, but it was maddening. "Jess, what?" Sonia began in confusion. "I don't know. Something smells wrong. Not a predator, I know that smell. Eva?" Eveline left off her playing, came to hover close to her coven mates, but she expressed her confusion. She smelled nothing out of place. "This is not a fucking acid flashback, all right? Something is wrong." "Calm down," Liam said. "No one said we don't believe you. I'm not picking up anything. Nick? Sonia?" Sonia shook her head. "But I'm pretty low sense at the moment." "Jessie's right," Nick said distractedly. "Something's not balanced. Oh, damn, it just felt me searching." Something tall and inhumanly skinny, with a long, heavy tail, stalked menacingly out of the shadows between 2 buildings. "That's a demon," Liam whispered. "It has to be. Oh, gods." The demon bared finger-long teeth in a grin. "Meat? Coven of wolf and witch and healer and gifted. My meat." Eveline snarled, ears back and tail low, crouching defensively between the demon and her horrified coven. Jess stepped around her, to place himself between the demon and his friends. He heard Sonia cry out, and heard Liam say softly, "Wait, let him go." His heart felt like it was pounding 3 times its normal speed. The adrenaline rush was powerful enough to make him lightheaded, but on some level he knew with crystal clarity what to do. The demon laughed shrilly. "More meat. Wolf meat. Tastiest kind." "Back off. You're not killing anyone." It had to look ridiculous, a slender youth in black mage silks, standing calmly before a creature twice his height and so well armed. The demon paced back and forth, angrily, but didn't try to get by him. "My meat!" "Go back where you belong." "No, you are alone. A child. You cannot win." It made a dash to the right, clearly intending to go around him. Jessie moved sideways, and it scrambled to keep from hitting him. While it fought for balance, he changed and advanced, hackles raised, growling. It hesitated, spun towards the 4 watching frozen. Jesse gathered himself into a tightly wound crouch, lunged at its back, and knocked it sprawling on the street. He tore savagely at it, while it twisted around, trying to reciprocate. Claws raked down his side, across the fading scars from the construct wolves, and they hurt, worse than the predator claws, but it left its throat open. Relentlessly, Jesse bit down. It struggled and shrieked, thrashed madly, vainly seeking to escape the merciless grip. He felt the spine crunch, and the demon vanished. Jesse stumbled and changed, panting. "Nobody ever tell you wolves can't fight demons?" Nick asked weakly. "Guess not. Can somebody check this? It's too far back for me to see." Liam immediately came close to examine the freely bleeding cuts across Jessie's lower back. "They look okay," he reported. "3 lines, none of them very deep or long." He laid a hand over them, and the wetness slowed. "Jess, by rights, you should be in small pieces all over the street, and the rest of us with you." He hadn't seen Eveline shift to human in her blue and silver mage silks. She hugged him, and he leaned against her, grateful for the support. With the adrenaline rush fading, he wasn't sure he could stay on his feet without help. Gradually, his heart was slowing to its normal rhythm. "How did you do that?" "I don't know," he told her. "I smelled it, and something in the back of my head told me what to do." The world tilted sideways, and his stomach turned inside out. The area around the cuts felt so cold it burned, and it was spreading, slowly. "I don't feel so good." "I'll go get the van," Eveline said, and raced off on 4 feet in the direction of Winter's house, not far outside the village proper. Sonia took Eva's place at Jess's side, helping him stay on his feet. Other voices that felt rather far off, but probably weren't, all talking at once. They couldn't have missed that scream. Liam calmly suggesting that it had simply been a particularly reckless and foolish predator. That wasn't going to last past the wolves catching the scent, Jess thought vaguely, but it seemed to ameliorate some of the chaos for the moment, which was probably good enough until Eveline returned with the van. In the safety of the warm, bright living room, Sonia coiled herself into a chair, shivering. Nick perched on the arm and hugged her, but whether for her comfort or his was an open question. Nick's new familiar, Malta, scrambled up onto Sonia's lap, so both she and Nick could reassure the frightened young cat. Gift from Sam though she was, and likely as uncanny as Alfari, the grey and white ball of fur and purrs was still not entirely out of kittenhood. Jess paid little attention, more intent on the fact that he could curl up on the couch, rest his throbbing head on his arm, and not move any more. "It's poison, isn't it?" he asked, hearing the words slur. Liam knelt beside him and laid a hand just above the cuts. "Looks like," he agreed after a moment. "Your body's a bit freaked by it, but it's starting to fight back now. Know something, Nick? You wanted proof that Alessandria had a 7th child that was half demon? Proof is lying here, getting wolf blood and demon blood all over the couch, and reacting no worse to demon poison than any wolf to predator poison. That's the only explanation I can think of, because otherwise this is not possible." "Does that mean if I fall asleep I'll wake up?" Jess wondered. "Yes." "Good, 'cause I'm really, really tired. Only if I sleep here, I'll be in the way." "That's okay," Eveline said, one hand stroking his hair gently. "You can sleep if you want." Gratefully, Jess closed his eyes and surrendered to the exhaustion, not even the slowly fading pain enough to keep him awake. 50. Kevin laid his book beside him on the love seat and got up to check on Shane. He and Jess and Gisela had been taking turns keeping an eye on him, waiting for him to wake up. Over 2 full days and heading towards the 3rd, and this was starting to feel endless. Nothing like a little déjà vu. No change, other than that Shane had been thrashing around again and had the blankets tangled. Kevin had done what he could to ease the psychedelic dreams that often came with psychic damage, as he had with Jess once, but there were limits on how effective it was. Gently, he straightened the blankets, freed them from one hand that now showed delicate webbing between long, fine fingers, reaching all the way to the first knuckle. He'd love to know how Shane had managed even minor physical shape-shifting, and whether that was a natural talent of the Children of Water. He'd done it a dozen times. This time, however, Shane stirred and opened his eyes, blinking in the sunlight. "Good morning," Kevin said softly. Where's Jess? Kevin stifled a sigh. He's at Coven Winter's house. He was there overnight. I'm not gonna tell you he's sleeping off demon poison from that fight last night that Liam called to tell us about. It's late Sunday morning. The healers don't think you did any permanent damage. And they were more familiar with overextended mages than they were with forcibly awakened wolves, so they should be right. Even if they were familiar only with mages of fire, not water. Gisela called Brian. You're off sick until a healer tells him otherwise. Healer's advice is that you're to spend the next few days inside the walls so you're shielded, and you're to rest and eat a lot. Shane rolled over and contemplated one hand resignedly. Damn. I don't even know how I made myself human the first time. There's no way I can do it again. Just when I need to make life a complete mess. You have to be the most pessimistic person I have ever met. Kevin sat on the edge of the bed and leaned back against the footbars. Turn it around the other way and look at the bright side. There's no more reason to hide. No, now I get to be a fucking freak. The only Marin who could never figure out why mass murder was better than being discovered. Unity, Kevin said softly. Liam had offered, along with a report, a rather interesting hypothesis involving Jess, Sam, Alessandria's seventh child, demons, the children of water, and a mysteriously destroyed village that smelled of unfamiliar wolves, but no elves or dryads, and resisted all investigation attempts. I don't know what name they called it, north of here. They took a couple of years to build it. It had less than a year, then they got too close. Are you absolutely totally sure nothing else has gone after Jess while I've been out? Jess is fine. That isn't what I asked. Shane twisted around and sat up. Tell me, he demanded. Kevin didn't hide this sigh. Coven Winter had a demon set on them last night. Jess killed it. He's sleeping off poison after effects, and Liam's keeping a close eye on him, but apparently his body dealt with the poison already. Oh, shit. Shane closed his eyes, and cold despair flashed across his face. He is one. And they found him. They'll kill him. Who will? The demons who helped kill everyone else. They made a deal. The Morenni mages would take care of about 60 wolves that the demons had a problem with, and use that blood to call 3 demons and give them enough power on this plane to kill all the rest of the village. They found Jess, and they're going to keep trying until they kill him. You know as well as I do, Jess is hard to kill. He'll lose this time. You tell me. The nastier sort of demons who like to fuck around on this plane, are they going to be real thrilled that anyone can stop them? I don't hardly think so. Liam, Kevin said, choosing words carefully, is very good at putting together pieces the rest of us miss. He noticed that 3 things happened, all in April and May 6 years ago. A village called Unity, where there were apparently wolves but no dryads or elves, died. Jess's memory ends, and Samantha showed up with nothing except what she was wearing. Her too, I think. She's been just waiting for me to hurt Jess so she could freak out all over me. Try asking her anything else. I just told you everything I know. Do you have any idea who might have sent that particular demon? Shane hissed impatiently. Probably not a Marin. I can't see them thinking it's worth much effort after this long. Only reason I can think that Lou would get involved at all is that one of the demons convinced them Jess might remember something. Lou, presumably, would be the mage they had fought by the lake. Why would a demon bother? Think about it. Easier than trying to act directly on this plane. Less risk for the demon, too. If Lou killed Jess, that would be the end of the problem. No longer matters if Jess can kill demons or not. If Lou died, oh well. Got it. But that failed, so they tried something more direct. You said there were 3. Sure, but whatever Jess killed last night was almost definitely a minor one, meant just to test him, and find out if he would give himself away to protect friends. Anybody's guess who actually summoned it, or whether it slipped through alone. Doesn't much matter. 3 demons in particular want Jess dead. I'm sure they'd be happier if it's before he can leave any little demon-killing wolves behind. Take out the summoners, and it'll slow them down until they find a new puppet. But they'll be back. Kevin chewed a thumbnail, thoughtfully. Sure, problems never go away that easily. But maybe if we can buy Jess some extra time, that phenomenal luck of his will kick in and bring something new into the picture. The term demon luck, for improbable fortune, both good and bad, had a whole new dimension now. You're really reaching, Shane said skeptically. Better than letting the wolf cub die because we don't think we can do anything. Can you seriously take that mage we messed with in the city in a fight under any conditions? Well, I thumped him good the first time, but the second time he would have thumped me just as soundly if you hadn't been there. The constructs he set on Jess have to have taken a huge amount of power, and worse, a lot of skill, which is a bad sign. He's definitely spent more time on offensive stuff. I never got into the heavy combat techniques, even at my worst. Unless I could duplicate the circumstances of the first time, which I doubt, then about the best I could hope for is daylight or a lot of moonlight, and then I could at least hold my own without him shredding my shields on me like he did last time. I couldn't let a little thing like minimal light stop me when he wanted to hurt Jess, now could I? Shane gave him a wry smile, which was reply enough. We do have another likely factor as far as summonings. Sam thinks Coven Whitethorn, the ones who set the trap before, are screwing around with demons, and she doesn't think they've gotten in deep. So if they aren't expecting it, maybe we can deal with just them and not with demon backup. Moira, the Whitethorn mage, I'm fairly sure I could wipe the floor with her, but that would still leave the rest. Sam asked us not to attack them head on, and I can see her point. I suppose we'd probably have to try to take all of them at once to keep anyone from having a chance to escalate things. Which sounds, well, tricky. And I don't know what we'd have to do to stop them permanently. I wonder if there'd be the slightest point in my trying to talk to Rebecca. This other mage now. He fell silent, thinking, then shrugged. I'll call a meeting as soon as everyone can get here, and we can think about him. The more brains, the better. And there seems to be more brains in this family all the time. What makes you think I'm a part of it? Or that I'm staying here past this mess being over one way or the other? Because you need a home, Kevin said softly. And the best home you'll ever find is... Here? Oh, please. Is where Jess is. You'll break his heart if you tell him you're only with him because you feel guilty, and you'll be leaving once the guilt loses its power. Shane stayed silent. Kevin shrugged and got up. Jess will be home whenever. I do have a suggestion meantime. When an elven mage is backlashed, light and heat help us heal faster. Water might help you more than being inside shields. It's your life, though. Do what you want with it. End of chapter 50 and 51. As soon as I have a mouthful of tea. Shivering, though not from the faint, cool breeze on his bare skin, Shane stood on the very edge of the lake and gazed at the bright sunset. The light played across the ripples on the water, rosy and purple and orange. And bloody, came the reflexive thought. But of the blood that had terrified him and driven him from the waters onto the dry land scorned by his kin, he could see not a trace. Jess knows. He doesn't blame me. Even Samantha told me today she doesn't hold me responsible. The blood isn't in the water. It's on the hands of my family. The ones who were involved, and the ones who knew what was happening, and yet did nothing to stop it. He tried to ignore how hard his heart was pounding. The waters were his home, the only home he had known for the first 15 years of his life. The few years since were no barrier against the powerful longing, and the equally powerful fear. Little waves splashed around his ankles as he stepped off the shore, then took another step, deeper. Soft sand squished under his feet, brought him the painfully vivid memory of him and Lou, both fascinated by this new concept of legs and feet, the two of them endlessly amused by how sand and mud and weeds all felt so different to walk on. He forced himself to take another step, and another. Nothing could happen to him. Even with his nerves in shreds, there was still nothing in the lake that could harm him. The Marinai had to have given up by now. Water up to his waist, up to his ribs. This beach couldn't possibly be natural, but why should that be any surprise? He had to swim to reach the raft. Sundark and friends had it out already, though the water was too cold for even the more hardy among them to take more than an occasional quick plunge. He hauled himself up to sit on the edge, got unsteadily to his feet, and crossed it to the edge that faced the open lake. I've been around landbound for too long, he thought wryly, when he noticed himself taking a deep breath. Before he could chicken out, he dove off the raft. The water welcomed him, closed cleanly over him. The switch from breathing air to breathing water was instinctive, and took no thought at all. The change from legs to tail took only a moment's effort. Not even the damage to his gifts could take that ability from him. It took no time at all to leave the shallows far behind, to lose himself in the depths. A joy he'd been sure he could no longer feel shivered through him. Poor landbound races, living all on one plane, up there at the mercy of the weather, needing their buildings and their clothes and all the nonsense that went along with them. No wonder Marinai had always found it so easy to sing humans away from the landbound world. A turtle swam by. He twisted around to chase it, but it wasn't much interested. A large pike was a better game. He teased it by grabbing its tail, deftly avoiding its increasingly annoyed retaliation. He had even more fun with a beaver once he talked it into playing tag with him, until it wandered off to forage. When a largemouth bass of reasonable size came too near, he snatched it before it could escape, slashed it open with a knife formed from the water before he even thought about what he was doing. Only belatedly did he realize that he was supposed to be unable to use his gifts. The ice blade was very sharp, and it took him only a moment to skin, gut, and debone the bass. The remains he left to scavengers while he bit into the fresh raw meat, a large part of his diet for his first decade and a half. Nothing had ever tasted more delicious. He discovered that he was near an island, and surfaced to take a look around. An otter on a nearby rock, a female who must be only from last year's litter, raised her head from her meal and looked back at him, wary but curious and not alarmed. Shane called to her, asked her to come play with him. Unperturbed, the otter finished eating, then slid into the water to join him. Otters understood playing better than fish, or even beavers. They had a merry time chasing each other all over the lake, usually near the shore as the otter preferred, and frightening everything else that lived in the water. Even some that didn't. A deer that lowered its head for a drink snorted and fled when a cat-sized otter and a marin 7 feet long breached the surface not 5 yards out. Shane helped the otter catch a few fish when she began to tire. Otters had to eat frequently for all that energy, something like elven mages. And he sprawled in the shallows of a different island, waiting for her. Next year, he figured, she'd breed. For the time being, it was unusual enough that a female so young had found herself a prime territory, uninhabited. The otter, belly full, came with him on a more sedate exploration. Because of that, Shane stayed near her territory, rather than heading out into the depths of the lake. That was fine. No way could he explore the entire lake in one night. He ducked under when they neared buildings and lights, otherwise alternated breathing water and air at whim. Every so often they stopped to fish and rest, and wandered on. Haven's Lake was pure heaven, rich in every sort of marine life that could flourish at this latitude. He could happily spend the rest of his life here. There was only one of him. There'd be no need to hunt other lakes, as a full colony of Marinai had to do. No need to have anything more to do with the madness of the land-bound world. For the first time that night, he thought of Jess, though before coming to the lake, he'd waited until he had seen Jess alive, and not much the worse for wear. Jess still needed him. It took some time to find the beach again, even with his new friend's help. In the shallows, he switched back to legs and stood up. On a sudden whim, he called the otter to him, coaxed her up onto the shore and inside the walls, promising her that she'd be safe. Right up to the kitchen door they went, she making worried noises at the smells, but trusting him. Everyone else was up, having breakfast. Nice timing. He opened the door, greeted them absently, and started digging around in the fridge. Is there any chicken left from last night? Third shelf in the white container, Deanna supplied. Why are we having a sudden need for leftover chicken? Present for a friend. He found it and closed the fridge door. I don't think I can get her to come in, but you could come out and say hello. They were lucky none of them were cats, Shane decided, because they'd all be out of lives by now. The otter growled, scooted off the porch, but no farther. Shane sat on the grass, held out a piece of the chicken to her, reassuring her in the language of the waters that no one here would hurt her. They simply wanted to admire her. She was so handsome and graceful and clever. She came to him, took the chicken in her forepaws, and chewed on it contentedly. When she finished, he gave her a second. Will she get scared if I come closer? Deanna asked softly. Not if it's just you, and you don't move too fast. Slowly, the dryad approached and sat beside him. Shane assured the otter that it was all right, and she sniffed warily at Deanna's hand, then accepted a piece of chicken from her. She's so beautiful, Deanna whispered, and reached out carefully to run her hand down the otter's back. The otter started, but allowed it. And so soft, softer than silk. Easy, Shane cautioned. She's getting pretty nervous. Deanna immediately drew her hand back and reached for the chicken. The otter devoured all that was offered, then spun around and darted back to the lake. Deanna raised her eyes to Shane's, smiling. Thank you. He wasn't used to being thanked. Definitely not by anyone as... The only word he could think of was alive, as Deanna. You're a lot like her, he said, without thinking. I don't think I've ever had a nicer compliment. Last night did you good, you know. You look considerably healthier and more relaxed than you did. I feel a lot better, too. It's like... He paused, searching for some analogy that might give them some idea how it felt. Like living on bread and water for years, then being given your favorite food, and finding out that you haven't forgotten how to taste it after all. I can't put it into words any better than that. In poetic and Christian terms, Bain said, like someone certain he's damned to hell for all eternity after spending some time there, then discovering that heaven is right there waiting. Shane smiled. I wouldn't call this hell, although there have been times. So what are you doing up here? Kevin demanded. Go, beat it! Go catch up with your furry little friend! No, not till this is over. Until I'm dead or these demons are, Jessie translated. Oh, relax. Go on. Sam left this morning to do God knows what and gave me the day off. I don't even have to go outside the walls all day if it'll make you feel better about it. Shane shook his head and got up. A nice thing about Haven being used to werewolves. Bearskin didn't cause panics. I'm going to get some sleep. It's been a long week. You're telling me, Jess muttered. Everyone wandered back into the house. Uncomfortable with the unaccustomed feeling of actually belonging here, Shane retreated to Jesse's room. Jess kept telling him to stop calling it his room. Exhausted as much by exhilaration as exertion, he curled up in Jesse's soft bed and fell asleep. For the first time in recent memory, his dreams were peaceful dreams of wind and wave and song, with no trace of blood. Even in the warm sunlight, Samantha shivered while she parked Catherine's four-wheel drive Jeep Cherokee and got out. Alfari bounced across the driver's seat and down to the ground before Samantha closed the door. Nothing dwelled here now, except ghosts and wild things. No one wanted to take a chance on a place where 233 people had all died or vanished, abruptly and with no official explanation. Some 50-odd households, one morning full of life, and the next silent. Buildings were boarded up, yards wildly overgrown. She felt tears sting her eyes as the thought found its way into her head. This isn't unity. This is the corpse of unity. What was unity is dead. She left the car and walked along the empty street, Alfari staying at her side, without even wandering off to investigate. There was the store that had everything from groceries to hardware, books to pet and farm animal supplies. There, the community center that had held the first incarnation of the library on the second floor. Most of the money and energy had gone into building the houses, knowing and accepting that for some time they would still be dependent on the nearest town. What mattered was being together. 58 demon wolves, Cassandra's descendants, from cubs to elders, more gray than black, and their friends, with their dream of their own village finally real. A village with a sense of excuse me. A village with a sense of community so powerful that it made Haven look uncaring and fractured. She paused in front of one house, set back from the road, the rectangle that had been an herb garden still recognizable. The long grass rustled as she made her way to it, measured steps along the edge, and dropped to one knee to search. She picked up the strong scent, smiled, and broke off a few sprigs of catnip. Too bad she hadn't thought to bring something she could dig the plant up with, but that wasn't why she was here. "Thanks, Dad," she whispered to the wind. "Alfari and Malta and Hob will love this later. I hope Rasputin's with you, wherever you are. Give Mom a hug for me." The catnip she stored in her jacket pocket while she returned to the street, and followed it farther. Each house called to her, and the names of those who had lived there. It was altogether too easy to imagine spirits held here by the lack of resolution to the whole story, needing to be set free. "Jesse is still alive," she told them out loud. "He can't be the only one. You know him and Jason. If one's alive, the other must be, somewhere out there. Jess might still survive and kill the demons that did this. And I know I don't entirely trust Shane. How can I? He's one of the children of water. They call themselves Marinai. But he's helped Jess so much. He even fought one of his own kind to keep Jess safe, even though he didn't have a chance of winning. Doesn't he sort of make up for the rest of them? There's still a chance that the story will have a reasonably happy ending. Maybe if you wish Jess good luck as hard as you can, that'll do some good." She half expected some ghostly reply, but none came. Her feet found, without conscious thought, the overgrown driveway of a larger house on the other side of the road, this one with more land around it. The chicken coop didn't look like it could shelter much of anything anymore. The chickens probably long since food for the wild things. The elm nearby was dry and dead, but 2 platforms still rested in its branches, the rope ladder to the lower one no longer there. Sam sat on the top step leading to the porch and leaned sideways against the post. Alfari climbed onto her lap, pressed against her, and Sam curved an arm around her to steady her there. Here, the memories were too strong to block. Dana Cora Tremaine's mate died when Andrew was 13, the twins 9, over 2 years after his initial diagnosis. 2 years of deteriorating ability to function, increasing pain that, in the end, lay beyond the control of magic or modern medicine. The nearest members of the community did what they could, and got word around. Sam, recently graduated from high school, offered to stay with Dana's family for a while and take over some of the household responsibilities. She hugged herself, smiling. Even in the grief of knowing her mate was dying, Dana had greeted her warmly. A determined woman who looked much like her offspring, the Cora Tremaine blood running true. Very clearly an alpha bitch, graciously accepting Sam into her territory as a subordinate pack member. She apologized for her mate's absence, explaining that he tired easily and was already asleep. With grave courtesy, she acknowledged the introduction to Sam's sleek orange feline companion, Yuri, which Yuri had returned, cautious but receptive. Then there were the kids. When Dana called them to the kitchen, they came promptly. Sam's first reaction was to wonder how on earth she'd be able to tell the twins apart. "This is Samantha," Dana said calmly. "That is her friend Yuri. These are Andrew, Jason, and Jesse. You 3 are to do as Samantha tells you. Is that clear?" Immediate agreement, eyes kept submissive low, but as soon as Dana looked away, all 3 forgot their gloom in curiosity and bounced over to quiz Sam on everything they could think of about her life, and meet Yuri, who batted away excessively importunate hands, forcefully, but with velvet paws. After an hour or so of that, Dana sent them off to bed. "They can be a handful," their mother admitted, amused. "At least only Andrew was born actively wolf. I can hardly imagine the mischief the twins would be into if they had both forms to use." "How are they doing?" Sam asked tentatively. Dana smiled sadly. "As well as one can expect. We've talked about it. They understand what's happening." She reached across the table, closed one hand around Sam's. "Thank you," she said softly. "Knowing there is someone else here is a considerable relief. We have nursing help through the day while I'm at work. Philip talked me into finishing out the school year, but the kids in the house and so much else to be done. I'll stay as long as you need me." "Come?" Sam followed her upstairs. To Andrew's room, first, the walls plastered with posters of wolves, rock stars, dinosaurs, and sports cars, in bewildering confusion. Dark fur showed betrayingly on the garnet-red bedspread. Dana leaned down and kissed her daughter gently. "Say goodnight to Sam." "Good night," Andrew said dutifully. "Can we go to the beach tomorrow?" Sam looked questioningly at Dana. "I think it would be nice for all of us to go to the beach," Dana said. "Maybe your dad will feel well enough to join us. But get some sleep, so you'll be awake for it." "I hope so. Okay." She snuggled down under the light blankets. "Have nice dreams, Sam." "I'll try," Sam promised. "You too." The room across the hall belonged to the twins. Sam was a little surprised to find only one bed, a double, with 2 small bodies nestled together in the middle of it, under a blanket with a pattern predominantly amethyst and sapphire. Dana glanced in her direction, shrugged, and smiled. We had to put them in the same crib, or they'd scream murder and never settle down. We tried about a year ago, getting them twin beds, but every morning we found them both in the same bed, so we gave up. I've had the other teachers at the school tell me they think they're too dependent on one another, that it isn't healthy. Obviously, they have no idea what a twin bond can be like for wolves. The smile became a grin. Many people throw fits at the thought of a gay teacher. Imagine if they knew they had a demon werewolf teaching a class of 7 and 8-year-olds. Sam had to chuckle at the thought. Dana gave each of the twins a kiss. "Good night, Samantha," one said sleepily. And the other, "We'll show you our rock collection tomorrow, okay?" "Okay, I'd like to see it." Dana closed the door part way behind them. That night was the first of many the two of them spent in the kitchen, sharing a pot of tea and talking. Samantha stayed long past Philip's death. When Unity was finally declared inhabitable in June, and Dana's family moved in July, she went with them, choosing her offered room with them rather than returning to her parents' household, with her parents' blessings. She helped them build the treehouse, and as often as they could get away with it, the twins slept there together. Everyone in Unity knew to make this work, they had to lean on each other, make this a sort of extended wolf pack, with everyone contributing something to the whole, and in return being assured the support of the whole. By March, they were sure it was going to work, that they finally had their dream, a place of their own. Latent wolf blood being relatively common among the Cassandra wolves, the tradition had formed of a Beltane ceremony of sharing power to a level that woke it. The twins turning 13 that year, they were to be included for the first time, an event that had both of them wildly excited, and their sister as well, though she teased them mercilessly about it. Then came April. The happy memories shattered. Her recall of that day was like that of a nightmare, twisted in ways that made no sense, only the feelings remained clear. Yuri had woken her, crying urgently and pawing at her. Her first reaction was to bolt for Dana's room and tell her they had to get out of the house and away. They had roused the sleepily confused kids. Sam left Dana to hurry them into their clothes while she ran to her room to grab her canvas backpack and dump the contents out. Yuri howled from the front door, the shriek of an alarm siren, and Sam detoured to open it for him. He took off running, not into the woods where he could hide, but towards the nearest house, and farther off she could hear more feline voices yowling frantic warning, the sound echoing eerily around the village. Lights were starting to come on, here and there, others responding to the unprecedented clamor. Virtually every household had a cat, and she rather thought that none of them were currently considering their personal safety. Some 50 cats, all gathering in force and clearly determined to wake everyone in unity, created a considerable cacophony. She wished Yuri and the others luck, and darted back to Dana's room. From under the bed she pulled a carved wooden chest, very old, and opened it. The mage silk-wrapped contents she stuffed hastily into her pack, tied it, and slung it over her shoulder. She found Dana hanging up the phone when she came out in the hall. "I called your parents," the wolf explained, "and 2 others. They can call others, but I think most people have heard the cats by now. You got... Yes, let's go." The 5 of them fled, out into the forest, under storm clouds gathering to hide the stars, with the agitated hue and cry of the cats a surreal soundtrack. They couldn't flee far enough to not hear the inhumanly beautiful song echo its way through the trees, twining itself into the rising wind, warping her perception of reality beyond recognition. Dana and Andrew were less affected than her and the twins, but what power must be in it to reach full wolves at all? Dana reported that she could smell demons, and the same sort of fishy scent the wolves had picked up traces of around the lake many times. Almost, Sam turned back to the village in terror for her parents, their friends, the other wolves, the brave cats that she could no longer hear at all. But she stopped. Her first responsibility was to see to it that Dana got her children to safety. Try as she might, she couldn't remember how she and Jess had gotten separated from the others, sometime after the full fury of the storm broke. No more than she could how she had lost Jess. Only the blind panic that she had failed, and Jess was out there alone, somewhere. She hid her backpack, close to Unity, and searched, the music still ringing in her ears until she thought she'd go mad, all her senses suddenly unreliable. The next clear memory was of waking up in Brian's bed, with the wolf who became her dearest friend hovering anxiously near, with nearly 2 weeks missing in her head. "Dana," Sam said softly, hugging Alfari close. Alfari purred and reached up to rub her cheek along Sam's. "I tried, I really did, and I'm sorry I messed up. But demon luck brought him right to me, and I haven't forgotten, even though he has. It's been so tempting to tell him, but he's been safer without his memory until now. They found him, and it's just him all alone against the same thing that killed everyone. I won't give up, I promise. Maybe demon luck will keep working, and you and Andri and Jace will turn up at the last possible moment. Maybe one of the demon wolves that we lost touch with when they moved to the States and the UK, or maybe a wolf from another line, like the legends say, will show up on the doorstep and help." She rested her cheek against the top of Alfari's head. "Yuri, I'm sorry. We only survived because of you waking me in time. All of you tried so hard, and you died, and I wasn't there for you." A chipmunk ran out from under the porch, a short distance away, gave her a wary look, and scurried off on errands of its own. Alfari's tail flicked, but she didn't move, and her purr never faltered. "Thank you," Sam told the chipmunk gravely. "I needed to be reminded that I came here for a reason other than the ghosts. I don't have infinite daylight, and finding what I left here is not going to be easy. And no way am I staying here after dark. Not even with Fari." She stood up and stretched. "I can at least give him back his name, Dana. That's about all I can do. But I'll keep trying, I promise." 53. Here we go. Okay, 53. Rebecca watched the clock on the wall tick slowly closer to 5 o'clock. She had been without a coven for something like 2 weeks now, and had discovered it to be oddly liberating. No one she needed to scold to do things properly, no one she was responsible for. She was giving serious thought to not creating a new coven at all, and certainly not right away. She hadn't felt this free in years. She could hunt when she pleased, stay home when she pleased, sleep in on the weekend with no one demanding her attention. Perhaps it would be better to find an apartment of her own. Certainly she earned enough that she didn't need to live with others. Yes, it was a wolf responsibility to protect, but if no one particularly wanted her protection, then simply being here and contributing to the general safety of Haven was sufficient. Perhaps she'd start making plans to leave entirely. Go to much smaller Irminsul in Saskatchewan, or Araloo in the Northwest Territories, or even to some more remote place where she'd be the only wolf. But even being in Haven just might be more tolerable under the right conditions. The clock inched its way closer and closer. A few people came in, but this was a Monday, and the second week of the month, so the always slow stream was more like a puddle. That was why she was one of 3 people who kept the entire bank functioning. Finally, time to close up. She crossed the floor to throw the bolt on the door, and turned back to the routine of closing. The couple Adam had been talking to in his office emerged. Rebecca let them out, locked it again, went back to her tasks. Adam came out and they chatted for a few minutes while she finished what she had to do. He'd take care of the rest. She slung her bag onto her shoulder and left, calling a farewell behind her as the door swung shut. She got down the steps and out onto the sidewalk. It took her a few seconds to register what it meant when 5 bodies in mage silks, black and silver blue and scarlet and forest colors, surrounded her, cornering her between them and the wall. Rebecca crossed her arms and leaned against the cool bricks calmly. "What can I do for you?" "Coward," Eveline spat. "You won't fight fair. You let others fight your battles for you, while you stand back and plan more tricks and lies. You've gotten away with it for far too long. Now stand and fight like a wolf, or run away like a dog." Rebecca's thoughts darted in rapid loops, analyzing this. The most likely possibility was that they believed her still part of Whitethorn, and the demons had lured Whitethorn into some other stupid attack on Jessie. "I don't have to fight you," she told them. "Coward," Bane echoed the taunt. "You've been refusing to fight me fairly for years, because I'm bigger than you. You can't use that this time. Anyone in this pack will fight you, here and now, one-on-one. Or are you only brave when you've got Carl beside you and when you've had time to cheat?" They certainly had attention. Everyone on the streets was drawn over. Rebecca hesitated. If she refused to fight, she'd lose face, yet again, and it would be even harder to regain any kind of standing among the other wolves. On the other hand, why should she fight for Whitethorn? Then she smiled to herself. Jumped to conclusions, would they? Assumed that it was her, personally, who goaded her coven into attacks, breaking the unspoken truce. They deserved anything they got. If she fought and won, they'd be no more wary of Whitethorn than they were now, and she'd regain a little face. If she fought and lost fairly, she'd lose no face, and they'd believe Whitethorn neutralized as a threat. Either way, she gained something, and to not do it would lose her something. Moonwolf, but she hated being trapped into doing things. Certain that her eyes were hot, furious gold, Rebecca moved away from the wall. "My choice," she said. "I can choose who to fight." "Yes," Eveline agreed. "Then, since I imagine this is once again related to him, I choose Jessie." He was limping slightly, looked tired, and of the pack facing her, he was the most inexperienced at wolf fights. Not the best for gaining face in that sense, but to confront him directly after their history would more than make up for that. She saw him wince, very slightly, but he stepped forward away from the others, shifted to wolf, and waited for Rebecca to do the same. Everyone else moved back, left them in the center of a large ring. Red Werewolf and Black circled each other measuringly, then both lunged at the same instant, tearing with teeth and claws. Rebecca threw Jessie entirely off his feet, slashed at his stomach. Jessie writhed away, got a hold of her ear, and tore. Startled, Rebecca yelped in pain and redoubled her attack, but Jessie got his feet under him and darted around behind. Though she whirled to keep facing him, Jessie kept moving, kept circling, and she had to keep turning, keep watching him. He feinted to one side, came in quickly on the other, was in and out in a heartbeat. She felt teeth dig into her shoulder through the heavy fur. Reflexively, she struck out in return, and he didn't get clear quite fast enough. Rebecca's claws raked the side of his face, over his eye, and blood blinded his vision on that side. Such a shame. Whatever else he was certainly easy on the eyes. Ah well, either Winter's healer or that little dryad girl would fix it. Rebecca darted into his blind spot. He spun to keep her in sight, but Rebecca used his own trick against him, stayed in the same relative place. Jesse whipped around in the other direction, answered her earlier yelp with one of his own, as Rebecca's teeth scored shallowly on his flank. He stumbled as she tore across half-healed wounds there. Already hurt, was he? She pressed the attack. Desperately, he twisted out from under her and scrambled to his feet, whining softly in pain, but obviously not about to give up. Her next attack left the side of her neck exposed, and she recognized it a fraction of a second too late to do anything about it. Her jaws snapped shut on his foreleg, but he stretched awkwardly and sank his teeth into her already sore shoulder, right through the thick ruff. The red bitch went down, though she held her grip on his leg. He let go, closed his jaws around the underside of Rebecca's throat, until the red bitch surrendered her hold on his foreleg, stopped thrashing, and just laid still, struggling for breath. Damn him! How had a whelp who'd only known for a year that he had a second form managed to defeat her? Jesse released her and turned away. Rebecca didn't move until he had changed to human, and then she only rolled to her belly, gazing up at him in a mixture of submission and resentment. Get out of here, Jess told her wearily, and leave me and Kev and the rest of us alone. Rebecca whined, shifted heavily to human. You won, she conceded, as graciously as she could manage. And you have my word as a wolf. I will do nothing at any point in the future against you, or Kevin, or the rest of your friends. She gathered her dignity around her, scooped up her bag with her good hand, and walked away in the direction of Mandisa's office, cradling her other arm against her body to keep from jarring her shoulder. Section break. What's the matter, honey? Indie Diva, if you can hear me, if you've still got this on in the background, could you grab some wet food for old dude here? I'm pretty sure he's looking for some. Hold on, sweetheart. Hold on. Food will be coming. I think. Pretty sure she's still listening. And if she's not, then I will do a... Alright. I'll be back in just a second. I've got a hungry cat here who is asking for some lunch. So, back as soon as I can drop some cat food in a bowl and deliver it to him. Okay. Life with cats. What can you do, right? Cats have to be fed. Okay, so we're gonna make... Yes, honey, let me get out of your way. Come on. Time to go all live again and stuff. So that much of a delay? Wow, that was a long delay. Serious lag. Okay. Okay. Back to reading. We just had a section break after Jessie thumped Rebecca. Bane slid an arm around Jess's waist, steadying him. Beautifully done. Shorter than I expected. I sort of thought we'd end up fighting until one of us couldn't get up. She's still a wolf, Brian said quietly. Whatever she's done, whatever's wrong in her head, some things still run too deep for even her to go against. Jess decided to think about that later. Meanwhile, Gisela was there, her hands finding each wound deftly and making the bleeding stop. She had it coming, but did you have to get hurt doing it? She grumbled. It's just a few bites, Jess said, although they were increasingly painful bites now the adrenaline was fading. Our place is closest, Eveline said. Deja vu, Jess muttered to himself. Finally fighting back, instead of letting others rescue him all the time, felt good. But was he forever going to have friends taking him home afterwards to put his hide back together? Probably. Come to think of it, that was much better than not having friends there to do it. He submitted meekly to Gisela and didn't argue when she sent a rather startled Nick to make a wolfsbane and painkiller tea for him. It made the world fuzz out, but it effectively dulled the pain. Bane demanded a report. She cracked one bone in his arm and bruised both of them nicely, Gisela said. The other damage you can see for yourself. None of it hit anything vital. It's a good thing wolves mostly don't scar permanently, though. I think I've got the bleeding completely stopped. Somebody grab me something I can use to clean some of the blood up. A moment later, something wet gently wiped away the blood on his face. Ouch, he mumbled. I'm trying not to hurt. How bad's that one? She got you with 2 claws. Starts in the middle of your forehead, skips over your eye, luckily, and ends on your cheek. It's gonna look a bit wild until it heals. Huh, she would. Time got blurry, too, but sometime after dark he found himself in Coven Winter's van, with Gisela and Bane, and Nick was driving. Kevin appeared from somewhere to steady him into the house. I beat her, Jess told him. I know, Bane told me. Everyone knows by now. She won't bug you anymore now, right? Right, Kevin said softly. Man, whatever Nick gave me is real cool. Somebody tell the world to stay still. I told you it was too much, Zella, Nick sighed. He's okay, Gisela said. He's hurting bad enough that it'll wear off soon. Dark coolness became bright warmth. He coiled himself into a corner of the couch, vaguely aware that the scents were those of the living room, and rested his head on the arm, listening while Bane described the fight for his coven and Shane. Hob, inevitably, appeared from somewhere and joined him, a warm, purring mass cuddled against his stomach. What on earth possessed you to let Jess fight Rebecca when he was already hurt? Deanna demanded. He wanted to. He had a right to, both blood debt and as a part of the pack. Don't argue. He won. For the time being, at least, Coven Whitethorn is no longer a threat. They argued for a while. Jess lost track of the threads so often he gave up on even trying to follow along, though he did notice Shane's opinion of his common sense had not improved any. He kept finding peculiar things in his head. A black wolf, much larger than him, that smelled female and achingly familiar. A silver dagger with something engraved on the blade, but he couldn't quite read it. An impossibly beautiful song, twining into a rising storm. Darkness and a soft, warm bed, snuggled against someone comfortably, perfectly content, and the other whispered, "Good night, Jess." But it wasn't Shane or Katrin. Morning sunlight, and the rich scent of bacon frying, and the sounds of laughter, the feeling of a fierce good morning hug. The vivid images faded, disappointingly, leaving behind an emptiness that had nothing to do with the pain of his abused body. He raised his head and blinked in confusion at the room. Sundark and Gisela were still there, he decided. It was just that they were doing quiet sorts of things. Cynthia was knitting, and Gisela was tossing multicolored toy balls for Hob to bat out of the air, and Kevin and Deanna were brushing Bane fur for him, and Flynn was writing something on the clipboard he usually used for short stories. That Shane was absent was hardly surprising. "Good morning," Deanna greeted him. "Our hero returns to the real world." Jess made a derisive noise. "Hero? Yeah, right, there's a new one." Cautiously, he untangled himself and flinched. The muscles of his lower back and right upper thigh felt like they had been completely shredded. "Let me guess. I get to spend another week in bed, eating and sleeping. This sucks." "As long as you're very careful, you're allowed to go back to real life probably in a day or two," Gisela said. "You just won't be able to do anything too active that might pull the cuts open again." "Anything active like killing demons?" Jess said impatiently. "How fast can you fix this?" He examined his left arm, the purpling bruises, the shallow holes where Rebecca's teeth had broken the skin. It hurt, but he still had most of the strength in it. "Not this, just the ones on my back." "I can't," Gisela said calmly. "I've already done everything I can. I've told you before, if healing is pushed too far, it can do more harm than good. You're going to have to let your body's own resources take it from here." Great. Unsteadily, he made his way to the kitchen, wishing he could muster the energy for a more dramatic display of frustration. A cold glass of juice helped him compose himself again. He visited the nearest bathroom briefly, grateful that it was on the ground floor, and groaned to himself at the thought of climbing the 2 flights of stairs to his room later. For the moment, though, his friends were waiting, so he went back to the dining room and his corner of the couch, and settled down to hear what he had missed. There we go. 54. Andry sniffed around the base of the tree, evaluating the scents that pooled there. Anything left by passing carnivores, she discarded immediately. Those of deer, raccoons, squirrels, birds, a lone porcupine, she considered more seriously. There were plenty of deer around, enjoying the open ground around the abandoned houses, but she and Jason were too badly injured to hunt one. Most of the rest were fast or fierce, or both. She might be able to take that porcupine, though, since that took primarily skill and experience, and she had those in her favor. If, of course, she could find it on the ground. The scent was fresh enough that she thought it might be possible. Nose to the ground, she limped in pursuit. Her left hind leg was badly damaged, enough so that she doubted it would ever heal right without help from a doctor or a healer. But leading demons into Haven or into a mundane settlement that had no idea what really existed, that was unthinkable. Given how talking and chewing felt, it might be just as well there was nothing to talk about and there'd been little to chew, only a few mice swallowed more or less whole. There'd been no further attacks, not in the couple of days it took to reach Unity, not in the days they'd been here. Could the demons not find them here? Or was there something else? Either way, they weren't going to heal at all unless they actually ate. So, she had left Jason, who was trying so hard to pretend that he wasn't in pain with every breath, to see if he could find anything edible in the long-abandoned gardens. If they were lucky, maybe something had reseeded itself. It was early in the year yet, but a few garden plants, and some wild ones, were edible, or even better at this time of year. If not, he might at least find a few snails. They were vile, but better than nothing. If they dared the shore itself, they might do better, find amphibian or crustacean life, might even be able to improvise a fish trap, but first they'd have to conquer fear of the lake itself, and what lay beneath those calm waters she glimpsed now and then from high ground. The porcupine's trail took her to a creek, burbling its way cheerfully between the trees, and along it. She slowed her pace, taking care with each step to make no sound. Even if she didn't find the porcupine, she might be able to surprise something drinking. She found where the porcupine entered the water, and some disturbed creek bed where she thought it ate some of the plants growing there, and then the place where it left the water and went up a tree. She looked up, spotted it high above. There was no way she could possibly climb after it, even if she were stupid enough to try. With a sigh, she went back to following the creek. From the village itself, she heard Jason bark, a call to her, but without urgency. Probably he had found something edible. Well, she wasn't accomplishing anything here, and her leg hurt abominably. She turned back in his direction. He was waiting for her, in a garden being gradually reclaimed by the wilderness, closer than entirely comfortable to one of the outermost buildings. If she let herself, she'd probably be able to remember who had lived here, and then died here. They had ripped up clothes to improvise a sling that held Jason's right arm firmly against his body, since that helped with some of the pain. Even though that meant staying human form, it was worth it, since putting weight on that foreleg was unbearable anyway. The dark, livid bruising, purple-blue and red shading toward black, with highlights of greenish-yellow, bled through under the edges of the sling. It made Andrew flinch every time she saw it. Pulling a shirt over his head hurt, so, with his own worn track pants, Jason was wearing only Andrew's stained gray zipper front hoodie, unzipped to allow room for his arm. Unfortunately, they had failed to come up with a way to moderate her own pain at all, but at least it reduced Jason's a little. "Nothing good," he said apologetically, "but it's something." She changed back and sat down awkwardly on her own sweatshirt that he had spread there. The weight of 2 full backpacks had been just too much. They had kept 1 set of basic clothing each, but almost everything else had been discarded. She hadn't realized until much too late that Jason had left behind all but one of his amethysts, keeping only his favorite tucked into the sling. That had made her want to weep. Her little brother knew as well as she did that they weren't going to live long enough to recover. And after what felt like forever, struggling to protect him, there was nothing left she could do. He had used her t-shirt to gather green things, leaves and shoots, things she recognized by scent as at least safe, possibly even appealing under some circumstances, fiddleheads and green onions and young dandelion and others. "More than I managed," she pointed out. "Don't talk, silly, it makes you hurt." "Hurts you too." She could see him wince, see the catch in his breath. "No dinner conversation over salad, I guess." She shredded as much as she could and swallowed it without chewing. Her stomach grumbled, wanting something more substantial, but she ignored it. Be grateful for what you get. Both heard the sounds of movement, footsteps coming rapidly in their direction, not quite at a run. They traded glances wearily. No one should be here, in a dead place. That could only be one last demon that had tracked them down. And any fight was going to be an extremely short one, with no doubt at all as to the outcome. Guess that was a waste of time, Jason said sadly. Oh well. So much for ever finding Jess. Hope this doesn't hurt him much. He let the hoodie slide off his shoulders, began to fumble with the knots holding the sling. Wait, Andrew said, puzzled. Don't smell demons. Smell human, with wolf and elf scent, and cat? What? Jason raised his head, inhaled as deeply as his damaged ribs would allow. You're right. Smells familiar, but... Andrew took another breath. Yes, familiar. From somewhere deep in her memory, if she could just place it. Associations there of safety and love and comfort. Around the building, the source of that tantalizing scent came into sight. A woman, not tall, sturdily built, her brown hair pulled back, in jeans and a denim jacket. She saw them, and quick walk turned into all-out run across the broken ground. A much smaller four-footed shape, deep vivid tortoiseshell, with a brilliantly white tail tip, raced along beside her. Samantha? Jason said uncertainly, head tilted to one side, and looked to Andrew for confirmation. Can't be Sam. Remembering wrong, right? Or a ghost? No, Andrew said in disbelief. Really Sam. Alive! She scrambled to her feet, but her bad leg brought her sharply back to reality. With an involuntary whimper, she fell, hard enough to bring tears to her eyes. Jason, more successful, hesitated. And then Sam reached them, and there were tears on her cheeks, too. Mother of wolves, she muttered. Are you too sure you're alive? I've seen dead things in better shape. Excuse me. She cupped a hand around Jason's cheek, eyes scanning his face. I've been desperately hoping you dying wasn't what made Jess block off his own memories. Jason whined softly, every muscle suddenly tense. Jess? He's in Haven. More or less safe and sound, finally. Damn it, I don't dare even give either of you a hug. I might break you. Sam looked like she was fighting the urge to start crying. She conquered it with pragmatism. Right, damage control first, sloppy reunions later. Dana would flay me for crying all over you instead of feeding you. Alfari, we just found Jason and Andrew. This is my special friend Alfari. Andrew remembered the special friends of that school of magic, and Sam's father's big, shaggy, black and white cat Rasputin, who was fierce to strangers, but always gentle and affectionate with Andrew's family. Even more, she remembered Sam's lithe orange Yuri, who had adopted Sam's charges as his own, and patiently endured hugs and tears and playfulness. He had often slept on Andrew's bed, when she envied her brothers their bond, and their certainty of never being alone. She'd stopped envying it forever, not long after they'd been separated. This couldn't be Yuri, back for another life. Sam couldn't possibly have found his body in time. Nor would Yuri have needed the introduction. She offered a hand, and Alfari came nearer to rub against it, purring thunderously. Hello, Andrew told her. I'm glad Sam has a friend. Shyly, Jason leaned down to echo it, following her lead with only a quiet, Hi. Alfari went up on her hind feet to meet him part way, and rubbed her cheek against his fingers. Did he remember Yuri and Rasputin? Andrew wondered. What do you have with you? Sam said briskly. Back to the car with both of you. I'll come back and look for your names once you're there with something more to eat than wild greens. You do better on 4 feet, Jason told Andrew, so you have 3 that work. Just clothes, Andrew said. Nothing else. Our names are here? I hid them, Sam said, shooing Jason away to gather up clothing herself. The tortoiseshell cat circled around the trio. Anything else? Good. I remember it was by a creek, and there was a hill with a crack in it that I hid them in, but I don't remember exactly where. I just followed one creek from lake to source with no luck, and I was looking for another one when I heard you. Just saw one, Andrew said, hunting. We'll show you. You will do no such thing. Just point. Reluctantly, Andrew pointed the way she had come. Good, I'll try that one. Once you two are at the car. Andrew changed to wolf and limped along with them. Sam took the one remaining pack firmly from Jason's good hand, and he surrendered meekly, letting her help him pull the hoodie back on. They only got as far as the road, which wasn't paved and was the worse for 6 years of neglect, before Sam commanded them to stop. Change of plans. I'm going to get the car, you're going to stay right here, and Fari's going to stay here with you. Don't move. Understand? Not an inch. Yes, Jason said, eyes low, and Andrew dipped her head in assent. Sam regarded them both measuringly, and strode off along the road. Alfari reared up to swipe her cheek along Andrew's reassuringly, and climbed onto Jason's lap when he sat down heavily. Cautiously at first, then with more confidence when she responded with arched back and purring, Jason stroked her. Sam returned before long in a newish red Cherokee, clearly well used but nonetheless in good condition. She parked, hopped out, and circled around to the back. Hello! To swing the spare tire aside and open the hatch. The inside smelled strongly of wolf and wolf bitch and human. Of elf and wolf bitch. Sorry. The inside smelled strongly of elf and wolf bitch and human, with a thin overlay of Sam and Alfari, and fainter scents of other wolves, other elves and humans, dryads, cats, and dogs. Me too. Which, would be why I had a lot of fun writing a novel that has werewolves in it. Way before Twilight. This was actually written back in the 90s. And heavily revised several times since then. Where did I lose my spot? There. There we go. Living sense. Everybody's got different animals that they get attached to or feel connected to. Mine's probably feline, but wolves are in second place for sure. And I tend to be fascinated by most animals. And fainter sense of other wolves, other elves and humans, dryads, cats and dogs. Living sense, natural homey ones that should be there. Inside, anchored by bungee cords to bolts in the side, was a sturdy-looking cooler that Sam opened. If I know elven mages... Yep. Jerky, dried fruit, crackers, Pop-Tarts, sports drinks... Dog biscuits. Must be for Lindsay. Under the circumstances, no one in Coven Firedrake is going to mind. The interior is spelled to stay at a steady, moderate temperature, so the drinks aren't exactly cold, but everything is safe. Can I trust you to go slow, and not overeat and kill yourselves? Food? Jason said hopefully. Andrew changed to human. We'll be good, she promised. Why our names? Why now? Because Jess needs to remember who he is, and given what I had to work with, that seemed like the best bet. Jess is in Haven, Jason whispered, and started to laugh hysterically, but it dissolved into sobs. The one place we've been avoiding. Andrew whined, slid an arm around him carefully. Jace, don't. Your ribs. We couldn't know. For what it's worth, Sam said, doing something in the cooler. I've been there all along, but Jess hasn't. Not until recently. She handed Jason a plastic bottle of bright-colored liquid. Here, take a sip, calm down. Not remembering protected Jess. All three of you remembering, staying still, but too young to defend yourselves, might have gotten messy. I don't know. It doesn't matter right now. Don't cry now, wolf cub. You're really going to regret it if you do. Drink. Don't choke. Jason struggled to obey the voice of compassion and authority. At the first swallow, instinct took over, short-circuiting the emotional storm, and Sam had to stop him from finishing the whole thing without a pause. He took a couple of breaths, as deep as he could currently manage. It's perfectly understandable that you'd be scared, Sam said, watching him sip it more slowly. Reassured, she wrapped an arm around Andrew's waist and urged her over to sit on the back of the Cherokee. Sam smelled of many animals of many kinds, and of alfari, and of a male wolf, and catnip, and faintly of salt. Get your weight off that leg. Here. She gave Andrea a gentle kiss on her forehead, reached past her to the cooler, and gave her a matching bottle. Sunlight caught the thin wet track down her cheek, but it didn't reflect in her voice. I found myself in Haven without meaning to, and by the time I reached any state of being able to decide, there was someone who felt like an oasis in the desert, so I stayed. Obviously, some inconvenient knowledge about demons hasn't been enough to make me worth the effort. I've been harassing every new class of students coming to Haven for the college for any news of black wolves. Subtly, of course. We stayed on the edges, Andrew said. The simple drink made her body scream for more of it, and she could understand why Jason had found it hard to stop. Mostly between. Visit each village, keep moving. There was, in Phalius, last year, a coven wanted us to stay. We're there 2 weeks, longer than usual. Wanted to stay, but scared to. They were very sad when we left. Coven in Aralu, not long ago, they were worried about us, wanted lots to help. If we stayed, they'd be dead. Demon attacks? Sam asked gently, pausing with one back door open. Andrew nodded tiredly. More and more. She'd have liked to assure Sam that they were okay, that she shouldn't worry, and didn't need to feel so bad, but didn't think she could make it sound even remotely plausible. Want Jess, Jason said, visibly torn, perching beside Andrew. But don't want demons in Haven. We've already got 'em, Sam said grimly, reaching inside to fiddle with the catch that held the rear seat in place upright. There we go. She folded the rear seat forward and down. And I suspect we need all the demon wolves we can find to stop it before it gets worse. We can't fight right now, can't even hunt food. Of course not. The coven Jess lives with have a house with massive and ancient shields. It was Alessandria's house. You'll be safe there, and we can get a healer to look at the pair of you. Now, are you okay if I go look? Eat what you want, but go slow. If Alfari tells you to stop, pay attention to her. Andrew gave her a faint smile. Been hungry before. Know what happens. The thought of how painful it would be for either of them to start throwing up right now was enough to counter any drive to stuff themselves indiscriminately. You can probably search faster with help. I'd rather have her here. I hate letting you out of my sight at all, and I wouldn't for anything less important. Just in case I really am seeing ghosts and there's no sign of you when I get back. Hop inside out of the wind and I'll close the door. I'll leave the tire out of the way so you can open it if you need to. Stay together, stay with Alfari, and all of you stay here with the car for anything short of hostile demons showing up, okay? We will. Clumsily, Jason crawled up into the carpeted back, lying on his less injured left side, and Andrew joined him, keeping her weight on her right. I'll be back as fast as I can, Sam said, as Alfari leaped up on top of the cooler. Eat something. If you fall asleep, it's okay. I'm going to get you to Haven and Jess and a healer as quickly as I can, I promise. She heaved the back hatch down, but as promised, didn't replace the tire holder. Andrew watched her walk away, long, rapid strides, in the direction of the creek. "Really, Sam?" Jason whispered, raising his eyes to hers. "Really, Jess? Not a demon trick? Not dreaming?" "Yeah, real. Demon luck. Last-minute rescue." It was so improbable that she could feel mad laughter trying to bubble upwards, but forced it away ruthlessly. "Food, please, Alfari?" Okay, that's the end of the chapter, and we're getting alerts that there is a major thunderstorm on its way in. Like, we all need more stuff to keep life exciting right now. So I think I'm going to stop reading there for the day. Also, I've been at it for, almost an hour and 40 minutes. So that seems like a good amount of time, especially since I started late. So, yeah, this is available online at prismcat.com/blackwolf, or you can click down in the thing down there, down in the profile stuff. And the Wattpad version is the only one that has the up-to-date version of the fight scene in chapter 6. I do need to do a little bit of cleanup all around and re-upload it to the other places that it's available, but it's substantially the same thing if you don't mind odd little bits. Yeah. Thank you to anybody who stopped by and said hi, or just lurked and listened. Lurking's also good. Is there anything else that I wanted to say? Can't remember. Wow, my concentration's terrible these days. I hope everybody is staying safe and being sensible, doing lots of hand washing, staying inside if possible, keeping everybody else safe if not yourselves. You know the drill by now. It's everywhere. But look after yourselves, be gentle with yourselves and each other. Please, we all have to be nice to each other to get through this. And I will be back tomorrow, sometime in the vicinity of 1 or 1:30 p.m. Eastern-ish, to pick up from there and keep reading. 2, maybe, probably not even 3 days, probably another 2 days to get through the rest of the novel. And then we'll see if I'm going to start another one or not. So, yeah, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, be kind, be patient, and that includes to yourselves. And I will be back tomorrow. Didn't have any feline visitors today. Usually I do, other than, a cat walking past me a time or two. Maybe tomorrow I can talk one of the kids into joining me. Okay, so, bye folks.